back at it. Jim Beebe, Athlete Builder Podcast. We're going at it live again. We got Lucas, my guy, out of Fort Wayne, and a newcomer today, new sport to dive into, a new area of the country. We have Shaney Lipscomb. She's from San Diego, lives in D.C. now. This is the whole family tree that started with Kenny Bigby, had him on, who then got us to Bill Brown, and then Jeff Gum, and then Bill Brown runs the New York City Seal Swim. I went out there August 10th, check things out, meet some of those guys on the teams, talk to the folks that were there, and set up more interviews and podcasts with more athletes, learn about how to be better. And I'm sitting there on one of the boats while we're watching all the participants swimming in the water, doing the pull-ups and push-ups on the barges, and I look over. I'm by myself. And there's most people that are on these boats are all like families or spouses, and there's usually more than one together in a group watching somebody in particular, as you might guess. And I look over, and there's this lady. She's standing there kind of by herself. I'm by myself, and I'm like, dang, she's my height. She's eye level. That's pretty rare, right? So I'm almost 6'3". In my family, there's 5 women that are 6 feet or taller, but it's pretty rare I come across another female that's over 6 feet tall. I'm like, lean build, watching somebody in the water, 6'2". I'm like, athlete. Let's go talk to her, see what she's about, and let's figure out it's going to be worthwhile to have her on the show. Well, here we are, early September, and it's happening. So we're lucky to have Shaney on the show today, Shaney Lipscomb. So welcome. Thank you for being on today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
It's pretty generous that you're on. I know you said you're married already to Sean, who's one of the team's guys, one of the guys that was there in the water. But your ceremony's coming up here in a few weeks, so talk about generous with your time. You know, if it's any kind of size to that ceremony, I gotta believe you're a little busy right now.
Yeah, it's gonna be about 180 people, so not small. It was originally supposed to be small, but mom was like, no. But yeah, I mean, it's just time management. Talking about this stuff is a priority, and yeah,
all right,
happy to do it.
It's amazing what those moms can do and the power they wield when it comes time for their daughters' weddings, right? Look out.
Yeah.
Well, Lucas is engaged as well. I don't know if everyone, all the listeners know that, but yeah, Lucas is planning things down the road to get married to Caitlin. So, fun time for both you guys.
Congrats, Lucas.
Thank you as well.
Thank you.
So I'm looking at the bio, and it's extensive, and there's almost a dozen sports here that she plays. And I think she's probably a Star Wars fan because I see fencing on here. But there's also archery, martial arts, softball. If there's any kind of gunfire, I'm thinking maybe she's from the country and just likes to just shoot animals and stuff too. But volleyball, basketball, soccer, golf, you name it. But the main gig though was volleyball, right?
Yes, correct.
And you went all the way through club, high school, played in college, a couple different levels in college, all the way to a pro team out of Peru, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's start there.
Yes.
How does that happen? How do you go from playing in college to thinking, you know what, South America sounds like the place to be?
Well, originally when I got my agent, I really wanted to be next to a beach. And we were talking to a couple teams in Finland and just throughout the Arctic Circle, and I am a sun child. I love being outside, and I have never experienced like months on end of like darkness. And I listen to Huberman. Like, I am all about like getting my sunlight in the morning, and honestly, like, I know it sounds kind of cheesy, I just really wanted to be next to a beach. And I know so many people that have gone to Europe, and that's awesome, but I don't know anyone that's ever gone to South America. And I've been to Europe a decent amount of times, and I've never ventured into South America. So I was like, you know what, this is going to be super different, and I had no idea what to expect, and it was so cool. So yeah.
What's the season like? Like, you just play in the fall? Is it a summer sport? When you guys play, is it indoor, outdoor? What's the deal? How's it go?
So the league I was in is indoor, and indoor volleyball is actually the second most watched sport in Peru, and wouldn't surprise me. Like following, and now I call it football because soccer sounds so weird after coming from living there. But yeah, we the season is 9 months long. I went in at the 3 month um part and just played the rest of the season. So each team is allowed four foreigners. There were two Americans, two Chileans. Myself and the other American came in early January, like the day after New Year's. And so yeah, we were there for the rest of the season, 5 or 6 months, I forget. So yeah.
And how many teams are in the league? Are there multiple teams from one country? Does Brazil have more than one team? How does that work?
Yeah, so throughout South America, each country has a certain amount of leagues, kind of depending on um, how good they are. So Brazil has a couple different leagues. Peru only has one, and it's out of Lima. Within our league, there were about, oh my gosh, I don't know because I only focused. The language barrier was a big factor for me, so I really only focused on like who I was playing that day. But I think we had like 15-ish teams.
Mm-hmm.
But we did go to the South American Championships in Brazil, and we played the Olympians. Like it was the craziest experience of my life. I had no idea. Honestly, I didn't even know we were going to the South American Championships. I just thought we were going to another tournament. And when we flew into Sao Paulo, I was like, wait, we're going to that tournament? And they're like, yeah. So that was cool. And getting to see um like women I grew up watching on TV. Like we played the best team in Brazil, and I mean they crushed us, but it was like one of the best moments of my life, like being at the net, just looking at the Olympians that I just watched in Paris too. So yeah, I know I got a little
Were you a bit
sidetracked there, but
starstruck, and you're like, "Holy shit, I can't believe I'm here," or was it like, "All right, I'm here, let's whoop some ass," or both?
yeah, I mean it was kind of a combination of being starstruck and also like being realistic with the level. It wasn't a doubt of personal ability. It was more a doubt of our team chemistry, which just at that point I had lost a lot of confidence in. And when you look at a team with a bunch of Olympians and like your own team doesn't have any like internal grit,
Mm.
there's no chance. If we were, who we were and had this like boiling passion to like just want to get after it and just send it and be like the best we could be and just like kind of see what happens, that's another story. But unfortunately, we as a team collectively did not have that mindset. So I just went into it just like, I'm happy to be here. I'm honored um, to like be sharing a court with these people. And honestly, I had one of my better games. So I was happy. It was the happiest loss I've ever experienced.
That'd be pretty cool. Was there like a
hmm
come to Jesus moment? You're like, "Holy shit, this ball's coming faster. They're playing so much quicker. They're so more in sync." Where you're like, "Oh,
hmm
this is a whole level of volleyball I'm not used to," or was the margin not as big as as you might expect?
It wasn't as we didn't get killed as bad as I kind of thought we would. Um, Volleyball it's such a unique sport where team chemistry and individual mindset and team mindset is what wins championships and what wins games consistently. You can infrequently win a game kind of based on luck if the other team is just having an off day. But yeah, I mean, again, like if we had collectively had a gritty mindset, and had been doing the things off the court at the level that we should have been, we totally could have had a chance. I mean, it's just this, it's not weightlifting where like it's not a body weight thing. Like it's all about how much you study your opponent, how hard you work in the game, how locked in you are. Like anything can happen in volleyball, and that's kind of what makes it so exciting. Is like some of these some of these losses or wins that you experience are like totally uncalled for sometimes. So yeah.
Can you like feel, in quote marks, feel the momentum change at times? Or can you feel the team's psyche on the court? They come in flat, they don't come in flat, they come in. You use the word grit a number of times. You say they don't seem to necessarily have that. Can you be like more specific? Where's something where you thought if we had more grit, this would have happened, but we didn't, so that happened instead? Like, what's an example?
An example would be playing out of fear of losing versus playing to win. And I have found that this is, especially for volleyball, like one of the most important things, because when you play out of fear of losing, like physically, you tense up, your game changes because your muscles are now doing things that they don't typically do when you're in flow or when you're relaxed or when you're in practice and you don't have the pressure of a coach screaming at you or the crowd screaming at you. So like your physical abilities actually change when you get nervous. And then to add on top of that, when you're only focusing on like, I need to hit this in because we can't lose this point, or you're not focusing on what you're supposed to be doing. And with volleyball, especially, this is what's hard about being a spectator with volleyball. You're really only absorbing like 5% of what's really going on in the game. And I think it's one of the reasons volleyball is growing as a sport and will continue to grow, because there's so much depth to the sport and what is going on. When you're at the net and you're blocking, you are literally paying attention to so many different moving parts. You're watching the setter, you're watching all your attackers, you're watching their feet, because there's so many different routes they can run. And if you mess up one route, then your whole, like, it's all interconnected. So when you lose your focus on all the very important things that you need to be very dialed in on, and all of a sudden you take your attention and you bring it to, we can't miss this ball, we can't lose this point, my coach is yelling at me, all the noise, there's no way that you can win. But if you can learn how to like block out the noise and just dial in exactly on what you need to do, I mean, that's how you compete. And we had no idea how to do that. Absolutely no idea. And we were just so hyper emotional, and I would never talk about a team like this unless I really genuinely felt it, and I will never see any of these people again. And if anything, like I hope change does come to the program, because I learned a lot mentally. So yeah.
Being married to Sean, we had Mike Getka on recently. His episode dropped actually today. And so he's a former SEAL instructor. Now in the private sector, he trains teams and he trains people that are going to BUDS, etc. And he locks in on BUDS specifically, saying, when you're going through Hell Week, you're just trying to make it to the next evolution, the next 5 minutes, the next hour. If it's walk from here to chow or run from here to chow, your only focus is to run. It's not to run and then eat, or then to run and then go to the latrine and then eat. It's just run. And then once you get there, then you can make another decision. But you get so good at only focusing on the next step that they can actually survive the 1,000 steps they got to take. And it sounds like your team was still didn't really quite have that yet, where they're thinking about all the 1,000 steps, they get overwhelmed. And you start hearing, I can't lose this, or I can't miss this, or I can't miss this block, or this hit, or this spike, or whatever. And all you hear is can't, and usually whatever you're trying not to do typically happens, right? If the kid goes up to the plate to hit, and you say, don't strike out, you know what happens, right? He strikes out. Because your brain, all you hear is strikeout. Or you hear strikeout. Your body, Getka said the same thing. You start tensing up when you're swimming, then you're starting to use oxygen way more than you should, and your body is no more as efficient as it could be. Well, that's in the SEAL programs, and that's in volleyball, it's in football, and you'll see that everywhere. Like Lucas played football and coaches all these kids. Lucas, you can talk about team chemistry or lack of focus and discipline, and when a team has it, everything's pretty easy because you're so in tune with each other. But when a team doesn't, the whole thing, like the smallest thing, sets it off, and then people start pointing fingers, and you start worrying about, I can't make this mistake versus attack, right? You're just mentally trying to defend yourself and essentially defend your ego because you're worried about looking bad, right? So just gotta be, Lucas, you gotta be around that all the time too, right?
Oh yeah, all the time. Especially like, dealing with high school athletes. If my big thing is always trying to keep them together. You were on a national team. A quick question though. Did you guys ever do anything together as a team? Or did you guys, I don't know if teams do that at that level, but like practice is over, everybody goes their own ways kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, especially coming from college in the States where like team bonding, team dynamic, team chemistry is like ingrained in your brain since you can walk. I was really blown away by just the biggest thing that frustrated me was the team that I was on had won the previous 3 years. So I came into this program and everyone is riding their high horse. Coaches are like, we're the champs. It's just like a we're the champs mentality. And so being the newbie, I don't have this. And I'm watching from the outside and I'm watching the other teams. And I'm like, why are we even talking about last season? Like, these other two teams in our league, like, forget Brazil. Like, let's just focus on our league right now. These two teams are good. And when we would lose or when things would go badly, our coaches loved to freak out and be like, we're the champs. Like, it was all, and again, it was a little bit difficult for me to understand, but from what I did understand, it was, we're the champs. How are we letting this happen? Instead of being like, scratch whatever has happened in the past. Like, what are we going to do to be the champs this year? How are we going to beat these teams? Because right now, these teams are locked in on us and want blood. And we're just like, la, la, la. And then things go bad and we're like, oh my gosh, like the world is ending. And it's like, no, it's not rocket science. Like having a plan when things go wrong and just like executing the plan and then having a plan to make things go. It was just frustrating, like being around this type of environment. And I really am not trying to negatively talk. I'm honestly just speaking of this as like an opportunity to talk about like learning from the environments that you're in, It's not meant to be a like a boohoo thing.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I asked that just because like I think about, there's like the phrase is called culture versus culture. And, I think that resonates a lot with especially team sports. And, I work with high school athletes and, the biggest thing that's changing where I'm at is our kids are doing things together. They're practicing, obviously they're practicing together, but, there's more buy-in into the weight room. There's more buy-in into doing team things. There's more, it used to be a team doing things together as a team was kind of like lame or whatever you want to call it. But like, those team bonding times, those times where you're building chemistry and building building friendship amongst your teammates, I think that's important, is being friends with your teammates. You may not necessarily be best friends with them all, but I think it's important to have somewhat of a friendship with the people that you're going to be participating in sports with. And that's the biggest change here is, getting everybody bought in, especially in the weight room. And, there's going to be, I try to put them in positions where they're going to experience adversity together and where they have to overcome things together, especially to give them a somewhat of a reference point to look back on and be like, okay, this is hard. I've gone through hard things before. So it's interesting because, I feel like it goes back to that culture versus culture. Is your team, is this team over here hardworking, disciplined, and are they together? And then you got another team that's full of individuals that, like you said, don't want to think about the past, but so I think that's important. I just wanted to ask that question because I think, if a team doesn't do anything together, if a team is not together and everything that they do, then during practice or outside of practice, I think that says a lot of what that team personality probably is.
I agree. Yeah.
They say,
and especially with.
Go ahead.
Oh,
go ahead.
My bad.
You're good.
I was just going to add, especially with females, at a college level, I would say once you get to a college level, you're typically and above, you're typically experiencing like 20 alpha females together all the time, and like the science shows that might not always go well. So I think like for girls too, like just being aware of that and like kind of building off the like alpha energy instead of like, because it's like you can be like magnets. You can either like lock in together or you're just going to be like trying to go together, but you're just going to push away. And I think like a choice to flip the magnet, like it's a decision. Like you don't have to be best friends, but you have to figure out how to be a team. Like you don't have to like each other, but you have to figure out how to play with each other. And like with boys too, with guys, it's being bought in is 100% like the most important thing, in my opinion.
20 alpha females. That's.
Hmm.
Can you talk more about like, what your experience was with that? Like going and playing at high level college volleyball, and because I'm assuming your sounds like your experience in Peru is a lot different than your time in college. But what's that like? How do you adapt from that? How do you what are the things you learned about playing at the college level around all these really good athletes?
Or you can talk even more broadly, growing up, and through high school as well.
Mm-hmm. So in college, when I was at University of Hawaii for my freshman year, the girls on the team, the seniors were gnarly. And my freshman year is really what taught me accountability, like personal responsibility for my actions, my mindset. And my coach, also super gnarly woman. But at the time, whenever things would happen, I always played the victim. Like in my conversations with my mom or my boyfriend at the time or whoever, it was always like, they're so mean. Like my coach is so mean. It's always victim. And it took me a few years, honestly, to like sit back and be like, no, I was being an idiot freshman. I wasn't working hard. And so once I got to a place where I was the senior and I was being tough on the freshmen, it gave me a perspective of like how important this is. And it really sucks to be in the freshman year position, but it's also super important for the individual to go through it. I'm not saying I was perfect by any means by senior year, but I was locked in. And I had my head out of my ass, which it was freshman year was pretty rough for me, mentally, physically. I went into University of Hawaii injured. The club team I had been on in high school was one of the best in the country. We had the Gatorade Player of the Year on our team. Everyone went top 20, D1 full ride. It was just that was just the culture. Southern California is just kind of a powerhouse, especially, oh my gosh, 7 years ago. Now Texas, Nebraska, Wisconsin, everywhere is, but especially San Diego at that time. And I'd been a jock my whole life. So going into Hawaii, where like in high school, one state championship freshman year, one state championship senior year, and was kind of like used to being one of the best. And then I got to Hawaii. I'm the youngest, I'm injured, and I'm very far from being the best. And I didn't know how to work to become the best. And I did eventually leave the program for a number of reasons. And at the time when I left, it was all everyone else's fault. And now looking back, it's really cool, like being able to like pick at every single thing that happened and like learn from it and be like, okay, like that's on me and this is how I'm going to grow. And I think, I mean, I've been very blessed with, as a kid, I had a lot of coaches and a lot of trainers kind of shoved down my throat by my dad. And at the time it was really rough. Like my dad had a very militaristic parenting style, and it was tough, but at the same time it took a very long time for some of those lessons to kick in. But once they did, like I truly feel like it's my biggest blessing, because, and it goes back to like how important mindset work is at any age. But yeah, I don't know if I answered your question.
Oh yeah, but okay, no, that was great. So what you talked about, like your freshman year, you weren't very mature, and it was everybody else's fault. And by your senior year, I think you said you had things figured out. But what was that? You know, from your freshman to your senior, when was that like turning point? When things started to click? What was it, a moment, or was it like just a period of time that you matured? But what was that moment you realized that, you know, things were changing? You're a better athlete and better person for, you know, what was that moment like? Do you remember when?
So yes, I left University of Hawaii. I decided to leave, and I came home to San Diego, and my ankle, it was like pretty clear because I was not doing PT. I mean, I was going into the trainer's room, I was doing what I had to do, but I was not like taking it seriously. I was doing nothing on my own other than going to the beach and going to parties. So taking recovery not seriously whatsoever. So by the time I got back to San Diego, it was like pretty obvious that I needed surgery. My ATFL ligament was like basically completely torn through. And my dad was sick, which is another reason I came home. So the family plan was, okay, I'm going to go to the San Diego Grossmont Community College, and I'm going to rehab. I'm going to play there for a year, and then I will go back to another D1 program. So what ended up happening, there is something called a 4-2-4 rule, which means if you go from a 4-year to a 2-year, you have to get your associate's degree before you can return to a 4-year, which was not made clear to me when I got recruited to play that program. So having thought that I would be there for one semester or 1 year, I was now there for 2. And that was like a big stab in the heart, because I was like, I'm going to be like, community college volleyball was never part of my plan. So that was a big like moment for me of like, whoa, why am I here right now? And then my father ended up passing away at the end of my 2 years at the community college, around the time that I was starting to get recruited by other D1 programs. And by this time, I was honestly kind of over volleyball. I was like, all my friends are off at top programs, falling out, and I am at a JC and I'm at home. Like, what's happening? Like, I should just move on with my life. And my dad, I was not really talking to college coaches because I just wasn't interested, and my inbox was filling up, and I was honestly just leaving them on red because I just did not care. And my dad started, one of the coaches, New Mexico State head coach Mike Jordan, reached out to my dad to try to get my attention, and they ended up forming a relationship, and they started talking like once a week for months. And after my dad passed away, I ended up reaching out to him, and we started talking, and I basically like committed. And my dad really liked him, and I just kind of like impulsively committed. And I really liked that he had a relationship with my dad, and because my dad had been my coach and my trainer and everything, I felt like I owed it to him to keep going. So when I got to New Mexico State, my dad passed away like a couple weeks before when I moved. So yeah, that was like the beginning of the shift for me, because that like obviously his death was like a pretty aggressive moment in my life. And then COVID hit like 2 weeks after he died, like almost right when I got to New Mexico State. So like super isolated in the middle of the desert, bordering Texas and Juarez, Mexico. Don't know anyone. Volleyball's shut down, school's shut down. So I had a lot of time to myself for self-reflection. And yeah, that's kind of when it all started. So
you mentioned when I mentioned on the boat that when you got hurt, you started to learn more about your body, you started to learn more about training, and then in your prep for today's show, you talked about prehab and rehab. You should be doing that all the time. There's that maturity component where, all right, I'm going to stop partying as much, actually take some of this prehab more seriously. Then you said you learned a lot more about training, getting stronger, more powerful. Can you talk a little bit about that transformation, that realization, that maturity on that component?
Yeah. The weight room kind of became my COVID hobby. I, like I said, had been paired with trainers my whole life. Amazing people, brilliant scientists, athletes. And I started to kind of like put the pieces of things that I had learned my whole life into practice. And there was a gym in my apartment complex that I would go to when I couldn't sleep, and I would have it all to myself. And I kind of would like work out at all hours of the day / night, which I'm very glad has stopped because recovery wise, awful. But yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time in my own room in my apartment because at the time I was rooming with another girl on my team who liked to have the boys basketball team over all the time and blast music all the time. So I would just lock myself in my room, and I would pull out my yoga mat, and I started like buying bands online, and I started buying like random like PT equipment. I just started like getting creative with my body and like seeing like, oh, this is tight. Like I'm gonna try to make this stronger or looser or whatever. And so this COVID period, which was crazy because I literally moved to the desert and I didn't know anyone. I was like, what? I can do whatever I want today, other than like log on to Zoom for class. But yeah, it was COVID, and then after college, and even in college, I still didn't really fall into the lifting rhythm. Like, I didn't wake up and be like, I can't wait to lift today. It was just like, ooh, like I'm gonna go to the gym and I'm just gonna play around and just kind of see what happens. But then after college, that was when I really discovered lifting, and it was the day that I met now my husband. We we met at a pool party and through mutual friends, and I was talking to this girl. Her name's Taylor Milton. She played 10 years of professional volleyball. And I was talking to her about, I didn't know if I wanted to go pro. Like, college was over. I didn't have access to a volleyball gym. And obviously for volleyball, unlike basketball, like you can't just go shoot hoops and work on your game. Like, you need a court, you need balls. So she was like, forget volleyball. Work out super hard for like 6 months or a year. Get in the best shape of your life. She told me the sentence, get in the best shape of your life, and then go. I was like, oh, okay. So that's what I did. And it was really cool that conversation also happened to fall on the day that I met my husband, because he was a huge part of that lifting journey for me, because he would take me to the NSW, or the gym on Coronado, and on the weekends, and I'd walk in and it's just a bunch of like either bud students or SEALs just working out, and I'm like, whoa, this is sick. So that's when I was like, I would like study like what they were doing, and then I would study my movements in volleyball. Like, I would watch my film, I would watch the way like my knees would cave on specific jumps, and I got very creative with my own training, and I didn't even have a program. I kind of made my own, which was really fun. Don't recommend that for most people, though. I will say that.
Right.
I will say get on a program. It's definitely the most efficient way to train.
Yes.
But for someone who's like falling into the love of the game, like don't force something if it's not there. So yeah, that was, and now I love lifting. Now I like wake up and I'm like, I can't wait to go to the gym, and I go to the gym. So it's like the foundation of my life, which is really cool.
Did you recognize the correlation from the physics of getting stronger and therefore more powerful and faster, and how that would translate onto the court?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, like, now that you're stronger, can you hold your arms up, and when you take a ball that's coming at you, do you have more velocity when you're spiking the ball or when you're serving it? Do you are you less likely to turn an ankle or a knee if you got stronger glutes and hamstrings and core? Like, are those things that you noticed at all?
Oh my gosh, it was like I had stepped into a new body, because I really didn't get on a volleyball court for months and months. I just worked out. And I remember the day, so I was in a yoga class, and at this time, like, I was training, but I had no plan, had no agent, had no plan. It was just like, I'm training for pro, but like, when am I actually going to do it? So it was in that yoga class. I went home to Sean, and I was like, I need to go pro now. So I was like, I have a plan. I'm going to go back to New Mexico, and I'm going to train for 2 months in New Mexico. No distractions. Because New Mexico meant a lot to me. It was kind of like the birthplace of this like new self of mine. And I had access to a bunch of gyms there. And like I would be able to practice with the team. That was honestly one of the main reasons. Is I was like, I need to be on a volleyball court now. So I've done the lifting part. I need to get on a court. I need to play for the next 2 months. I need to just be with the ball, be with the weight room, and then I'm going to go. I'm just going to do it. So I remember when I got to New Mexico and I stepped on the court and I took my first jump, I was like, holy shit. Like, it was literally a holy shit moment where I jumped and I was like, I've never jumped like this in my life. And even my attacks, my blocks, like everything was so much more powerful. And I instantly fell back in love with volleyball. And honestly, it made me realize I don't think I had ever been in love with volleyball because I'd never experienced this feeling of like having this internal confidence of like, whoa, I actually feel strong. Like this is no longer just about hand-eye coordination and strategy and whatever. Like, I feel powerful. And that was like such an important moment. And definitely for volleyball and weightlifting, like, so necessary. So necessary. Not just for vertical, but like all your movements. And like you're like when you jump, like it's not just like the explosiveness off the floor. It's like what you can do with the ball in midair. And like the different, like especially with volleyball, when you're attacking, you're not just hitting as hard as you can. Like you have so many different angles of attacks, kind of like in pitching, how you have like different types of pitches. It's very similar to that, but like angles and depths. And there's just so much to it. And that's all controlled by your core and your shoulder. And the more strength that you have, the more control that you have. So now all of a sudden I had this whole new weapon on my body. And I was like, this is sick. And it was the first time that like hard work actually I could feel the payoff like in an instant moment, which I can't, other than like getting an A on a test or something like that. Like I'd never felt like an instant moment of like months of hard work like leading up to a moment of like results. So yeah.
So one of our phrases is confidence comes from reps. And you just mentioned that you had all these reps in the weight room. Now you have this new vertical jump, this new ability to torque and hold in the air and apply power. So then your confidence goes up. And if you're playing any kind of sport, whether it's an individual sport like golf or a team sport, that confidence enables you to be more aggressive. I can try this thing because I believe I can do these things, right? I will take on some more risk. I will push a little harder because I think I have this. I can make this shot, right? I can hit this pitch. So now you're this whole new person that's transformed. You've been through the maturity process the 4 years, which is one of the main things for college for anybody. I can tell you all the times I was out drinking, doing stupid shit earlier in college, and through a lot of it. But you had that piece. Then you had now that you're stronger, then you had the focus piece. So now, like, you're ready to go, right? So now you go to Peru. But if I'm looking at the timeline, like you got back this summer, like, so you're not going back. Is 1 year and playing pro and done. Is that right?
Yeah. So I made the decision that I would be done for two big reasons. One, I am at a position in my life where, especially after COVID, realizing like how important my environment is to my growth. And obviously at the time when COVID was happening and I needed to be alone, I needed to focus. But that's because I had just been not alone nonstop since basically like 8th grade, just always with people, always being social, always doing something. But then after Peru, I really realized like I have to be surrounded by people that are better than me outside of volleyball, that are smarter than me, that are like just trying to be their best selves. And if I am the person in the room with the best mindset, then I'm not in the right room. And that's not supposed to be like a self sabotaging statement. That's more of just like I really felt it being around people that I didn't respect. It I don't want to say it was toxic, because I think I don't I don't love that phrase, because I was playing professional volleyball. I was surrounded by a weight room. I was living on the beach. Like, who am I to say that's a toxic environment? But in terms of like my own goals for my own growth, and I'm nowhere near where I want to be. I have so many things on my list of like habits and disciplines that I need to get to. And I need to be surrounded by people that are doing those things actively. And I've felt myself grow and be better when I'm around people that are just crushing it in life. And that's honestly one of the reasons that I not just like fell in love with Sean, but fell in love with his environment. Was all of his friends, especially their wives, are just some of the most badass people that I've ever met. And whenever I'm around these women, I'm just like, I get chills just talking about it, because they're all so locked in on their lives. And I that's such a gift to have that. And I needed to go back to a space where I was around people that like want to grow and like science and like are just interesting. So yeah. And the second was Sean and I didn't want to be apart for our first year of marriage. Like, we had already done the 6 months, and um if he gets deployed again, like that's like, we can't help that. But I was like, you know what, this is not a deployment. Like, this is, it's volleyball's gonna end at some point anyway. And that's the thing, is like, I don't feel like I've stopped being an athlete, because there's so much to do in this world, and I've wanted to do so much for so long. And going pro was the goal, and I checked the box. And so yeah.
When we had Bill Brown on, I asked him, what do you miss about the teams in general? And he just like, it's the caliber of the man. And Lucas and I were talking about it before you hopped on. It's when you're around people that are looking to achieve, it's pretty fun. If you have to drag everybody along, personally or professionally, but you got to drag the team along. Man, I don't even want to be on the team. It's like, come on. I don't even want to be around those people. Yeah. It is really just, achievers don't like being around non-achievers, and non-achievers don't like being around achievers, right? So it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned about not getting smarter at things and, learn about your body, but you mentioned a number of times Huberman. So is that Andrew Huberman? He wrote Protocols, right?
Yeah.
Is that your guy that you're referring to?
Yeah. All right. He's my guy.
He's your guy?
Yeah.
Don't worry, Sean. I'm sure Sean's still number one.
No, Sean Huberman's our guy for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
That was like one of the first things we bonded over. It's like, wait, you listen to Huberman? I listen to Huberman. And then we would just nerd out over Huberman. It was like one of the best moments ever.
Oh, you guys are like me and my wife, where we're just total dorks, because she's reading about Teddy Roosevelt, or she'll be reading about the Civil War, and let's say battlefields and generals and leaders and how they handle things. So we like a good nerd, a good nerd couple.
Yeah.
That's awesome. One other thing I want to hit before I move on to this other thing is just on the food piece. We've hit everything in the athlete builder playbook except nutrition. And basically you said you got to have protein all the time, and then make sure your creatine, your fish oil, your main supplement. So can you talk a little bit about where some people, and sometimes females more than males, just want to look good, right? They want to be thin. And then they realize, I want to be an athlete. And just being thin means you're kind of breakable. How you need it, and how you have to eat to perform. So you can't just be eating Taco Bell and drinking beer at 2 a.m. in Hawaii, right? You actually need to try a little bit harder. I know spam's pretty big down in Hawaii as well, right? So can't just be, which is a real thing. I know there's over 40 different versions of spam there, but it's a total shit food to eat. But
you nailed it on the Taco Bell and beer.
Right? Well, we recognize our own because
Mm-hmm.
I had plenty of that as well. But just hit that last piece because I want to sum it up here on something else before we move on. Talk about that realization and how you needed that piece of the puzzle to complete the athlete package.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, especially with females, it's really sticky because how do you teach a young girl that, like, I mean, food is fuel, and I have definitely struggled with some eating stuff in the past, and um it takes, I don't know, it took me, I'm still working on the nutrition part, and it has become like one of the most important pieces of my life right now because it's not, for a time it was eating enough, and in college especially it was really like eating to be skinny, especially when you're living by the beach, and like there's, I mean, the social stuff is one thing, but a lot of these young girls are going through this, and um, once you realize that food is fuel, and I think that is like the most important phrase for me is like what I put in my body is like my gasoline. And I remember my dad was a maniac in the weight room and just like Iron Man and yada yada, but he was always broken. And I remember at his service, one of his best friends said something like, yes, like Jeff was a Ferrari, but like or Jeff was a Ferrari because he was always in the shop or something like that. And um, after I had ankle surgery freshman year, then tore my ab junior year, and then banged up my knee and ended up getting surgery after college. So then once I realized, okay, wait, what if I can use like food as medicine as well? Because clearly I'm not doing something right here. And at this point, I was like, I'm lifting a lot, I'm focusing on PT, like I feel like I'm doing things, but I'm still getting hurt. So what's going on here? And also, I still had really bad skin, and that was a big mental thing for me, especially in high school. And I will say the second that not the second, because it wasn't like an overnight thing, but once the general shift had been made from like ultra processed foods and not a focus on hydration to real food, unprocessed food, higher protein, and a always having a water bottle with me, like my skin has completely cleared up. I don't have any face makeup on right now, and I don't have one pimple on my face. And I had really bad cystic acne. And once that happened, like once I saw a physical change in my body, I was like, whoa, food is very, very powerful. And I still struggle with an extreme sugar addiction, and I don't say that lightly. Anyone that knows me knows that I do have a sugar addiction. Um, I will purposely not keep things in the house, and then when the cravings come, I will literally take the maple syrup bottle and just like dump maple syrup in my throat. Like it is,
Wow.
but this is like part of, yeah,
That's awesome.
it's nuts. I've fallen asleep so many times with chocolate in my hand, so I wake up and there's just like melted chocolate all over the sheets, and Sean is just like, "Are you good?" Like, all good. But again, like that's just, I know I will get to a point where I mean, I've already made such big progress. Like right now, the sweet that I have in my kitchen is banana bread that I made. It's all from scratch, so there's no processed food in it other than like, I mean, flour. But like I used minimal flour. It's real food, you know? And like I am not a psychologist. I'm not a nutritionist, so I don't want to speak on the psychology behind nutrition because I am about to start working with a nutritionist that's based out of San Diego for this reason, because I'm not qualified to speak on it. But I do think that, like, once people dial in the fact that, like, food is fuel, like, your whole world changes. Your sleep changes, your mood changes, like, people always talk about mental health and yada yada, but then it's like, let's target mental health, but then they don't think about any of the things that actually affect it, which is food. Like, if changing my diet can remove my cystic acne, then, like, what do you think it's going to do for all of my injuries and everything else that I don't even notice is happening? Like, that's just on the outside. What about, like, what's going on the inside, So,
Well,
yeah.
when we talked that day out in New York, you mentioned a number of these components, and I'm like, oh, I hope she says yes. Please say yes. I'm going to say yes. It's like I'm asking this girl out, or you're hoping you're at hey, we go to prom with me. I'm kind of having that hope that she says yes to that level of ask. So I was like, please say yes to be on the show. Please say yes to be on the show. And so, when Lucas and I talked about what we do here, when we look at the athlete's head, well, there's the mindset piece, right? And you talked about focus and grit on the team. And you talked about knowledge, which is another part of the athlete's head, about, hey, you got to watch when you're jumping, where their feet are, where the angles are, all these little nuances. Then outside of the actual sport, learn about your body from, Huberman. Then there's the team component, which could be toxic, non-toxic. You have alpha females and people that are, you said, gnarly, that were the seniors. How can you take criticism and bounce back and learn from that? So all those three components are critical in the head. All three of them can actually elevate you if you're pretty good at it, or completely stop you in your tracks. So the two-time defending Peruvian champs were completely stopped in their tracks because their team chemistry was not up to par. Then you talk about physically, I'm a whole new person and a whole new body because of how you train. I'm a whole new person once I figured out how to eat. Physically, look at me. I'm a different person. My face is now off. I have a new face on it with no more acne because I learned how to eat better. And then there's the recovery piece. So the prehab and the rehab. And in all three of those components, you can either, again, go out and whoop ass and beat people because you're doing really well in any one of those three or all three, or any one of those three can hold you back. So if you don't have your nutrition dialed in and you're putting yourself through all that volume, well, then you break, right? Well, I'm training hard. I'm getting enough sleep, but I'm not eating. Well, limiting factor, you're only as strong as your weakest link. I have a huge weak link. Break. I have an injury, another setback. Or I'm eating fine, my team chemistry is fine, everything in the head's fine, but I'm not lifting. And now I have to do all these things at a very high level, powerful level, and my body can't handle it. Break. Right? So you either find all six of those things in their limiting factor and elevate those things so you can continue, one, to just play, and then two, to win. And then whenever you don't, you'll have that time where, well, shit, now that I'm hurt, I have plenty of time to reflect on where I fucked up and figure out, well, what is the root cause of my problem? And then the learning occurs, and then you make the adjustments. And you want to say, as someone who's turning 50, you talk to someone who's 25, fuck, man, would you look at these things and fix it? And now you at 25, you probably want to go grab that 14-year-old girl who's going to be a freshman and say, who's going to high school, girl, just give me a half hour, give me an hour. Let me line out some things for you. Just please listen to me, right? Please. Because I got some tips. And everything you've had shared with us so far, one, completely selfishly, I'm so happy because I have a niece that plays volleyball, and she's pretty good. She wants to be pretty great. And she's young enough where she can implement some of these things. But she doesn't want to hear it from her dad, and she doesn't want to hear it from her uncle, right? But I thought, well, maybe if she hears it from Shaney and someone else, and I can send it to her whole team, maybe they got a shot. So I'm really, really just thankful for that information. Really, thank you. So it was a little aside, a little rant, but I appreciate it, Shaney. So,
Of course. Yeah.
One other component I wanted to address quickly because it was important that you mentioned it when we were on that boat was, I said, these girls are in the Olympics out in Paris. You're like, yeah, I know some of them. I was like, shit, okay, this is high level. And I said, when people always ask me, what's the one thing? And it always makes me lose my mind because there never is one thing, right? I said, can you whittle down what are some of the few main drivers to play at the high level? You talk about getting stronger, blah, 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 which we already addressed. The one thing you said, which I wanted you to talk about now, is can you talk about, you said you have to be able to outlast and not quit around after being hit with all the female toxicity year after year after year and playing team sports. It's not true with all teams. There's always different levels, different variations, different severities of it. But even on the guys' team, it's bullshit there too. There's guys that fuck around with other guys, and it's there's favorites, or there's bullying that goes on. There's hazing that goes on, right? I'm sure Sean might mention there might be some hazing with the teams, right? Could be from time to time, right? But can you talk about that component a little bit, Shaney, what you experience and what your advice is for anyone that's still competing?
Yes. So my number one piece of advice is just keep going, because it's not getting a PhD, like becoming a professional athlete. Yes, it is difficult, but it's not that hard. And I don't mean to say that to put anyone down. Also, there's obviously a big difference between myself and an Olympic level, but still professional athlete. And when it comes to volleyball, I was never the best. But what really blew my mind was, I remember like thinking back when I was at the community college and I was at this really low point. I was like, whoa, identity crisis. Like, I've never been here before. Like, I've always been at a very elite level. And I remember looking at all my teammates that were playing for Nebraska, Texas, UCLA, USC, like you name it, all the top ones. And everyone has gone their own ways for a reason. And I'm not saying like going pro is better, but I am the only one that went pro. And I was like, when I remember thinking about it when I was in Peru, I was like, wait a minute, what is everyone else doing now? And everyone stopped after college. And I think that no matter how like hard things get and how many obstacles you face, if anything, the more obstacles you face, the tougher you will get and the smarter you might get in this field. And it was like the more things came at me, like the more I had to just keep going. And like I almost quit so many times, I can't even tell you. And I wanted to quit for so long. I remember telling my parents in high school, I just want to be normal. I have no idea why I said that, because I remember very distinctly saying that multiple times. And I truly don't know why, but I think it was because the pressure, it was a lot. Like, it was every weekend traveling. We were going all over the country all the time. And I wanted to be with my friends back home. And I remember just wanting so badly for it to just end. And I was like, I can't wait till volleyball's over. I can't wait till I have my life. And then I just like kept going. And yeah, you just have to keep going because you're going to get there. And then there also comes a factor of like weighing, is it best for me to keep going? Because it's not always best to try to force something that's not happening. So with the pro thing, like, let's say I got hurt right before I was supposed to leave and I would have to have rehabbed again. I don't know that I would have, because now it's like, okay, what is trying to accomplish this one goal taking away from my life? Like, what would it be smarter to just pivot? And I think that it's a combination of luck and a dedication to continuing. But you also have to be like mature enough to be able to make the call and be like, okay, this is clearly not working out. I'm going to pivot if there's a better option. If there's not, then just keep going. But if something arises and it's like, this is smarter for me, and again, like it varies for everyone, but if the goal means everything to you, then don't give up, you know? Because if something happens and that goal is still the number one most important thing, you don't care that you just got hurt. All you're going to focus on is your recovery. And I mean, like, even after college, when I got knee surgery, I literally made my mom drive me the day I came out of surgery to 24-hour fitness. My mom took a video of me on the treadmill walking very, very slowly. I was like, I have to move. I am not going to treat this. I took it a little too extreme. Like, I started squatting on like day 3, and my trainer was like, please stop. But it wasn't a PRP, like, it's not a PRP injection. I did the research, and I was like, moving is not going to like set the surgery back. It's all about pain management. So like, I was so locked in on just like getting after it after that surgery. I didn't even think about the fact that it would take me another year and a half, 2 years to even get to my goal. Like, that thought didn't even come to my mind. It was just like, all right, I have to heal my knee, and I have to come back even stronger, because this left knee is really, really weak. And yeah, like, it's really, really fun being like so obsessed with something that, like, again, all the noise is just gone, because you're like in the zone and you're not even playing. And that's the beauty of sports, is like, it teaches you, it doesn't matter like what happens on the field, on the court, congrats, but like, what are you going to take from that and like actually apply to your life after? Because again, volleyball ends, but there's all these things that I'm like able to apply to my life now. So,
Well, all the 6 things, the 3 for the head and the 3 for the body that we talk about for athletes, you're going to be able to apply that in your marketing department. It's still going to be the same. Mindset, teamwork, etc. And then, like, you talk about being at these different crossroads, there's always the financial decision, meaning there's a cost involved with effort, pain, work, time, and then money. And then there's the return on investment, right? Is it just to play one more year? Is it, so Aaron Rodgers is coming back because he doesn't want to end on an injury, right? But does he really need to come back? He's already won titles, right? So there's a cost involved. And then there's a return on investment question. What I like about what you said, that when you're dialed in and focused, that is a gift. You're right, because then there's no uncertainty. Uncertainty just makes you slow down. And if you watch the greatest lifting movie ever, West Side versus the World, you'll see them talk about Louis Simmons. He's coming out of a hospital where his leg is in a cast, and then there's a trach in his throat. And he doesn't have his wife pick him up from the hospital. He has his other lifting buddies. This is from West Side Barbell in Ohio, best lifting gym. They take him right to the gym, and they have him max out his bench. Now he's a few hundred pounds off his max, but it's like, hey, no, we're in the fight, right? We're in the fight, and we keep fighting, right? So what a gift that is. When you talk about the obstacles, the thing about being a pro and an amateur, it's significant. And so when an amateur has any kind of obstacle in front of them, whether it's injury or dealing with a teammate or a coach or scheduling or handling jet lag or nutrition or eating out, right? The pro has been through all those ups and downs and problems, and then now has their own personal playbook, and therefore their answers. They're pros. They have answers to all those questions. The other amateurs are still learning it. They can't go pro because they haven't earned it yet. They're not ready. They're not ready, right? You're not ready to start varsity in high school if you don't know the playbook, right? You're not ready to start varsity in high school if you know the playbook but still can't adjust the audibles, right? So you're not ready. And the reason you're not there at that level is because you're just not ready. So to your point, you just keep going. As long as you keep going, you don't quit. And you got a shot, because someone else is probably going to quit. Either they're going to quit on their food, they're going to quit on doing the extra homework or lifting in the weight room, or the film study. They're going to quit during the training, so that they'll quit their team at the end of the season. And if you just keep not quitting longer, that's probably how you ended up on top. Because everyone else is kind of just faded away. Like, if I could tell you some of the things where Lucas didn't quit, he has these huge wins right now, and he can tell you offline later. But there's some instances where he didn't quit, because of those instances, it's one of the main reasons I just wanted him on my team. Because I know he's just not a fucking pussy. I just want to train with. I want someone on the team who's not a pussy, right? All right, that's it.
Exactly.
When you're training, do you train with Sean, or you guys train separately, or like I can't be around him, he's doing his thing, or when you guys do, what do you guys listen to?
So you're gonna laugh. I still listen to my music, but occasionally he introduced me to like hard rock / metal, which I remember in college listening to in the weight room when the baseball team would, oh my gosh, it drove the volleyball team insane. The baseball team would just start like blasting metal and we'd be like, what is this? This is terrible, whatever. Fast forward, I don't know how, but I listen to some scary stuff sometimes, and it's just like, I don't know, when you're about to go lift a lot of weight, it makes you feel kind of good when someone's like screaming in your ear. So sometimes, occasionally, I listen to like hard rock.
You got an example there? Is it Slipknot? Like, what is it?
Like, okay, so I'm still
don't say like Billy Joel.
Learning. No, God. I mean, Billy Joel's great, but that's not hard. Like, you know the song Curse by I just saved it. Oh, Nothing More is my favorite band right now. But like Architects, Curse, do you know the Architects? I also like will listen to like podcasts with like Jocko or whatever, and they'll talk about music they like, and then I'm such a nerd with that stuff, so Sean would kill me for saying that. But Sean like loves this music, and then I just, yeah, it would also always be playing in the weight room at the NSW gym, and it just got to the point where I was like, this is sick. And then I also just listen to my silly EDM as well, because that will never leave my heart. And then sometimes I listen to podcasts when I'm doing like a calmer workout, when I'm not trying to like send it. If I'm doing like PT or just kind of like accessory stuff, or if I'm doing like a long run, like a slow long run with no speed work, I'll listen to podcasts.
Nice.
But yeah.
Try this one. I don't know. Not many people know this one, but there's only a few songs I'll listen to if I'm really trying to max out. And I don't really max out a ton anymore. Usually when I train, we'll listen to a montage of speakers pointing out like affirmations or things that are calling you out so you don't quit. But if you ever watch the All Blacks, New Zealand's rugby team, perform the haka, I'll listen to the haka if I'm maxing out on a squat or a deadlift. I'll have that when they're doing their chanting, I'll listen to that. And actually the haka in New Zealand's language and then also in English is up on the wall in my gym, for that reason. But you should pull up the haka and watch them perform. So I don't know if do you know what I'm talking about with rugby?
Yes. Wait, actually, I have.
She pulls out and starts doing the haka right now. I'm gonna lose my shit. Like
I was gonna grab my hat. I have the hat that I wear every day is an All Blacks hat, and I love it. And people will be like, "You like rugby?" I'm like, I mean, it's sick.
Yeah, it is sick. It's sweet.
Like, how can you not like rugby? It's especially female rugby. Oh my God. Yeah.
Well, maybe you want to take a look at playing that locally. Check out James Kerr's book, K-E-R, his book Legacy. All the foundational things on leadership and how the All Blacks go about running their business. Not the dollars and cents, but their business of creating a team. They're the most successful team in the history of Earth. Over 100 years in existence, they have won more than 75% of all their matches.
Wow.
Right.
It's badass.
It is badass.
That's I'm gonna study them more. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. Bucket list adventure, like you listed 74 different ones. but you only get to pick one. All right, so
Okay.
right there they are. I want to jump out of a helicopter with my kayak down Mount Everest, land in the water, and swim all the way to the equator, and then run up the pyramids at the same time. Is basically one of the things, right? But is there another one that's a little more realistic?
I mean, I think all of those are realistic.
Well, sure, but
I'm not gonna lie.
But you only get to pick one.
Also, viewers, he distorted my words. Snowboarding jumping from a helicopter, people do that. All of those, I can do and I will do. I will shake on it virtually. I can't pick one.
I want a
There's
cage
no way
dive with a great white.
I think about them all.
Yeah,
actually, Sean and I are going to Kauai on our honeymoon, and if I can convince him, no, we're going to do it. We're going to swim with tiger sharks. So that'll happen in like 3 weeks. I really want to swim with sharks so badly. One of my best friends, Laura, swims with sharks, and she's just talk about an animal of a human. She's just one of the most incredible people that I have ever met in my life, and you should actually have her on the podcast next. She's one of the lead instructors of Deep End Fitness. I don't know if you know what that is, but
I looked it up.
She's one of the most incredible humans on the planet.
So Luke, I don't know if you looked it up or not, but they ended up doing their entire weightlifting session, which is like 2 hours, but you got to do it underwater with no air. So you have to hold your breath for like 2 hours, and you're benching and squatting and running and doing burpees all in the deep end of this pool, and you got to hold your breath for like 2 hours.
I do burpees in the bottom.
Well, I exaggerated a little bit there, but yeah. But basically, their stuff is in the water, it's in the deep end, and I was like, fuck, okay. That looks hard, which looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
Favorite sports movie? You said you're not really into sports movies, but you had one that you watched all the time. It's an awesome one. On My Signal, Unleash Hell. Your favorite movie is Gladiator, right? That's sweet.
Gladiator. Yeah.
Favorite sport to watch?
Football.
Favorite athlete
sure.
and favorite athlete to watch?
I can't tell you how much it hurts. Huh? No, American football.
Football or soccer?
I mean, football. Did you guys know that flag football is coming to the Olympics 2028?
That's not a sport for the Olympics.
It will be.
Yeah, I'm sure. But they also said breakdancing was a sport too.
About to be.
Yeah. Okay. It'll be shortly.
Yeah, I know. But do you know what this means? This means that the door for female. Do you know how badly I want to play football and wanted to as a kid? And volleyball players, I'm going to tell you this right now. We're going to see a shift in the sports world. Yes. You know, I have only seen one other girl that can throw a football as far as me, and she's also a volleyball player. Savi Simo, she's on the AVP now. And I think that once football starts and like chicks actually can start playing football, we're going to see a lot of volleyball players go from volleyball to football, and it's going to be sick. And you're just going to get a bunch of like 6'1" animals just like playing football, which is, sorry, I love football, and it
Not
hurts
flag,
my
but
soul
like
that
full pad
it was
football, right?
Well, I don't like flag, but it's the only option right now. Flag is for Football is definitely the sport. Tackling, throwing. But it's okay. I'm not.
But then you like Lucas. He has all the school records, and he's badass. So, what's your favorite athlete to watch in any sport?
Oh, to watch. I mean, probably.
I guess you could talk.
I don't want to be basic and say LeBron, but like he's just such a specimen. But Tom Brady I know. But I will say a non-basic answer. I will give you this one. Candace Wiggins, who was my inspiration as a kid. She played in the WNBA. and I went to all of her camps growing up. I have a bunch of pictures with her. And those pictures, like I look back on that and I'm like, this is why female athletes for young female girls as role models is so important. Like Candace Wiggins, and no one really knows who she is, but for me personally, she, yeah, she's just cool.
That's awesome. You got a favorite book?
Yeah.
Fiction, nonfiction, comic book, anything?
The Rise of Superman by Stephen Kotler.
Kotler, yeah.
Learning, that was the book that taught me about flow state, and I had no idea what flow state was until I went on an 11-mile run, which was at that point the farthest that I had ever run in my life. And I hit flow, and running has always been an uphill battle for me. Never ever has it been like, yay, I'm running. Like, no. So this time I'm on a run with Sean and two of his friends that are training for an Ironman, and we're in Denver, so we're at elevation. And of course, if I'm invited to go to something physical, I'm not going to say no. But I was like, oh my God, 11 miles, that's so far. And then I hit flow and I was like, this is science. This is nuts. My body, just for the last 4 miles of the run, it was just a magical experience for me. And so Sean recommended this book, The Rise of Superman, that basically just studies the science of flow state. And they talk about Laird Hamilton, like getting the first big wave at Chopu, and just like the science behind the most incredible endeavors that humans have accomplished. And I love nerding out on that. So that's for sure my favorite book. Also, John Wooden, The Pyramid of Success. That was like an OG middle school book for me.
You got a favorite superhero? Could be real or not real.
Wonder Woman. Like, that's another movie that I would watch before games. Gladiator and Wonder Woman. I know it's cheesy, but she's so cool.
What about the Linda Carter version? Or are you too young to know?
I don't know who that is.
She's the original Wonder Woman back in the TV shows, when they made the TV shows before the movies.
Oh.
Yeah. Before Gail
I'm sure
Gardeau.
She's great too.
She's outstanding for anyone that's my age. How about favorite you said favorite supervillain, you don't have one. There's no like ass, you're like, hey, this person's an asshole, but I like this. This person's great. Since you don't have a favorite villain. You know,
I mean, maybe Darth Vader, just because I love Star Wars, but like, I also am not, like, I've never been like, I'm just a Luke fan. Luke is actually, fun fact, my third, Mark Hamill is my third cousin. So I'm a big Star Wars gal.
Wow. All right. We have yet to have anyone say this next one, and I'm loving this answer. Favorite lift? You said box squat. And I was like, holy sweet Jesus. Hell yeah, that's amazing.
And I know it's going to piss you guys off, but...
What? Box squatting is amazing. Yeah. It's outstanding.
Yeah. Box squatting is the move that changed everything for me. Like, I have so much gratitude towards the box, because I'd never been able to get heavy going deep. I would just continue to pull this hamstring. It started young too. I pulled this hamstring in like 6th grade. And I just had never been able to load heavy. And so I never experienced like the exhilarating feeling of lifting something really heavy. And then Sean actually introduced it to me, and he put a box under my butt and just threw plates on there. And I was like, buddy, you are overestimating me. He's like, no, just do it. Sit on the box and then explode up. I was like, okay, I actually might be able to do that. And I have maxed at 365, and my goal is to hit 400. that's going to take a hot second because, 35 pounds is a lot. But like for me, there's no better feeling than like being under the bar with like 45, 45, 25, 10, 10, whatever it is. And just like, it's a lot of weight. And I have never considered myself like strong until I found this weight. And then it sparked something in my brain, 100%. I don't know the science behind it, but whatever it was, when I hit that heavy weight for the first time, that was when I was like, now I want to bench heavy. Now I want to deadlift heavy. Now I want to clean with good form and learn how to start like adding weight. So I don't know what it is, but I think especially for volleyball players too, like if your niece is listening, like box squatting for girls, teaching them how to load weight, I think is like very, very valuable. Obviously, you're going to get more, like if I could do that weight and go full depth, obviously that's more ideal. But like, especially for volleyball, when our movement is, we never jump from the ground up. Like a lot of our explosiveness is coming from like even our feet. So I'll finish all of my squats on my toes, which with 350 pounds on your back, like being on your toes is like, and that built my ankle straight. And I will say, like when I'm maxing, I don't go all the way to my toes, but when I'm at like 200, which feels like lightweight with a box squat, I'm really able to go to my toes and like get this insane like ankle strength that I've never had before. And I am working towards a heavier deep squat, but I mean, even today I maxed deadlifting at 265, which for me, I've never been heavy deadlifting. And I was like, dude, this is sick. Like, it's just, weight is fun. Like, moving things that are really heavy is just like the coolest feeling in the world. And I had never experienced that before. I was like, lifting. Now I'm like, yeah.
You don't want to squat 400. You want to squat 405.
Okay.
That way
I can do that.
That way it's 4 plates, 445s on each side. If it's 400, then you got to get 2.5 in there.
Okay.
That's what you want. And you shouldn't be using a chick bar. You should be using a 45-pound bar, right? So 405, that's what you want.
Yeah, I use the 45-pound bar. Okay.
Perfect. Let's let this slide down your back too, because it's thicker. All right, last one. You have a favorite quote?
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
I have a lot. One of my favorites is there's no rules, only consequences. And I actually have a list of quotes from very smart people, but this in particular quote is from myself. And I honestly apply this towards like the gym, towards everything in life. I'm like, there's literally no, like, who's making the rules? Like, there's no rules in life unless you go to prison. Like, that's the only rule. But other than that, like, there's no rules. There's only consequences. And so, like, once I realized, like, it's up to me to decide, like, which rules to break, how to do things my way. Like, for example, the box squat. Like, so many people had just been telling me, don't use box, you want to go full depth. And I was getting nowhere. Like, I was so stagnant, and I add the box in, and then boom. And I was like, whose rule is that? Like, it just made me realize, like, wow, what if I just did things my way, and then I pay for the consequences, whatever they are. And then I learn from those consequences. So I like that quote because it helps me, like, stay true to myself and just kind of, like, live life. Like, life is so short. Like, we only have, like, what, 100 years-ish on this planet. Like, I'm not gonna listen to, like, someone else's rules.
Gotcha.
And I'm just gonna hope that I get smart enough to listen to my own.
We were finishing up our training today. I like that quote, by the way. And it was Alex Hormozy. And he says, when it comes to your dreams and your goals, if you think about the things you refuse to give up, those distractions, those little things that kind of hold you back, those things that you refuse to give up, that conglomeration, that accumulation of all those things, that's the person that beats you. So it's you. And it's those things that you won't give up. So if you're on your phone 4 hours a day and you won't give that up, well, it's you. And that version of you is what beats you. And it's been in my head all day since I heard that. Oh man. Well, I like this one here. There are no rules, only consequences. Well, there's a little bit of rules, you gotta pay your taxes on April 15th. But I hear what you're saying, right?
Yeah, but
if you
not
don't,
paying your taxes is a consequence.
It sure is. It sure is. Damn right. You're right. Shaney, where can we find you if people are looking for, tall 6'2" people that are in DC that play volleyball and are kind of badass and like the haka?
Like, where can you find me?
Online.
Like, what do I do in my day?
And social media.
Instagram. I don't have a TikTok.
Okay.
I refuse. I use Facebook, but it's mostly just like catching up with like uncles and aunts.
Right.
But yeah, Instagram. I don't really use Twitter. I don't even think or X. I don't have the app on my phone anymore. I don't think. So yeah.
Okay.
Instagram,
Shaney.Lipscomb. For those that you have questions, you can email the show at info@athlete-builder.com. Be on the lookout for our book and planner at companies. It launches September 30th. I wrote it. It's not terrible, so we'll see how it goes. But be on the lookout for that. Shaney, had a great time today. Really learned a lot. I enjoyed the candor and how frank you were, the lessons, how introspective you were, and I learned a lot. And I think there's a lot to be taken from here. So we had a great time today, man. Thanks so much for the generosity. Really loved having you on.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome, and congrats to you, Lucas, for everything.
Thank you. You as well.
See you guys.
And congrats on your book.
Oh, thanks. We'll see how it goes.
Bye, guys.
See you, Shaney.